Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others aspiring to be them can follow in their footsteps.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Latte with a Lawyer. I'm your host, Jonathan Brickman, and this afternoon we have with us Alex Tuttle, and it's his law firm, Tuttle Yick. And where are you located? You're in New York somewhere.
We're in Manhattan, yeah.
In
We're
Manhattan.
at 29th Street, 29th Street and 7th Avenue.
Excellent. 29th and 7th Avenue. So you're like just south of like the Garment District, where you used to be, right?
Yeah, we look out on Madison Square Garden, so we get to see all the high-profile events that are about to come out. And if you walk down, any which way, you're going to get all sorts of traffic and interesting characters. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was just there. There's a whole lot of construction going on around the garden.
Yep, the front of it's being completely rebuilt.
Yeah.
So they have a scaffolding that takes up the entire block. So that's going on, and then at any given moment within a block of where I am, there's major construction going on. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I spent many years going into Penn Station, and but then they relocated a lot of it to the old post office, right?
I believe so. I actually I try to avoid Penn Station as much as I can.
Yeah.
So I walk around to get to Herald Square, which is not much better, but I get to Herald Square to take the train that drops me off in Brooklyn, where I live. So
you live in Brooklyn?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
I used to live in Manhattan for quite some time, and then we made the trip out to Brooklyn when family became a priority. So
very good. I understand. Well, anyway, I got to start off. I got to ask you, Latte with a Lawyer, what your morning beverage is to get started?
First, water. I got to hydrate. I got to just refresh, and then coffee, but coffee while I'm eating breakfast, and coffee with heavy cream.
Nice.
Yeah.
Why the heavy cream?
It's a good question. And it actually has a few layers to it. One of which was my father. That's what he drank his whole life, and I never drank coffee until probably 5 or 6 years ago. And then the process of following certain nutritional guidelines, I actually learned that higher fat intake was not necessarily such a bad thing, and I'm trading fat, which has some, not necessarily all the bad things, instead of some of the preservatives that are in the lower carb, lower fat alternatives. So that's where I landed.
There you go.
Following my father's footsteps for sure.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, listen, we eventually become our parents.
Yeah.
At some point, right?
Yeah, I'm right there.
That's pretty funny. Well, listen, there's a famous doctor that believes in a lot of fat, no carbs too, right? Atkins.
Sure. And then there are variations of that. There's the paleo diet. There's the low carb, slow carb diet, all that stuff. So you take it to extreme, of course, you're not necessarily living healthy anymore. You're just trying to look good. But if you extract various things from each of those diets, for sure. That's
bingo. That's exactly right. All right, so there you go. Coffee with a lot of cream. Okay, good. So tell us about your law practice.
So currently we have 3 major practice areas. We do commercial litigation. We do anything construction law related.
Yeah.
And then we have a traditional real estate practice. And within each of those big practice areas, we have subsets of what we focus on. And for example, within the construction world, one of our bigger practice areas is working with either developers or adjacent neighbors in negotiating license agreements between them, which has become maybe one of the most voluminous and trying and challenging practice areas in New York City, because in development in New York City, one of the necessary evils is you have to protect all your neighbors with various forms of protection, like scaffolding and roof protection and underpinning and things that would protect the foundation or the windows or whatever it is. And, you knock on a neighbor's door and you say, hey, I need to do all these things to protect you, and I need to go into your property and make your life inconvenient for a very long period of time. And by the way, I just, you didn't ask for this. So, trying to negotiate with somebody who never invited this is part of the, it's interesting because you got to get somebody from no to yes in a very short period of time. Developer's time frame is very quick. You have lenders and investors and your client telling you, you need to get this done pretty quickly. And then there's a remedy in court you can proceed with if you're denied. If the neighbor just says, I don't want you doing that next to me, and you go, and it's supposed to be an expedited proceeding, but it has its own nuances and quirks with any judge who you wind up with in Manhattan or Brooklyn, for example.
Yeah.
So
if they say no, you do it anyway, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to, and then certain thing, and the judges, and the irony of this practice area is the only area that I'm aware of where the prevailing party has to pay the losing party's fees. So I'm the developer. I go into court and I get, because the neighbor won't let me on, and I win and I get the access that I need. I have to pay all of the neighbors' attorney's fees and all of their engineering fees and all of these license fees to do it. And I can't think of any other, legal
usually
arena
goes
where
the other direction.
it's the other direction. So the incentives are in a very odd place when you go through this practice or this process.
Well, you just find it through the lender. I used to be a construction lender, so you just have the bank fund it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I mean, it's part of the budget for sure. And then you go over budget, and that's when everyone gets very upset. It's really the timing that is the biggest problem. That's the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
Getting your access when you need it. But yeah, so zooming back out, those are our practice areas. Our firm started in, I started it in 2012, September of 2012. And I was working at two prior construction law firms before I went out on my own. And I was debating whether to join as an counsel to another platform that had an interesting practice that I thought might be a good plug-in for me, or doing it on my own. And I made the calculation to go out on my own. And, at the time I didn't really have any baggage with me. I was single. I didn't have many expenses, and this was the right avenue for me to do it. And then I started off, and it actually took off. So I reached out to one of my close friends who I went to law school with and I worked with for a little bit, and said, hey, you want to join me? This was about 7 months later. And he said, yes, but you have to put my name on the letterhead. So I said, okay. So let's do it. And from there we've just grown. Now we're considered probably a boutique law firm of 15 people at this point, and it's been a fun ride. Stressful but fun.
Yeah, good. That's a great story. So it's you're doing commercial construction, right? You're supporting commercial developers, I assume.
In the developer world, yes. Yeah. I do often work with, not often, I from time to time I'll work with homeowners who are looking to do some serious renovation, whether it's in their apartments or townhouse. And, they're at a scale where, they need us to look at their contracts. It's too much money, and you have to deal with the co-op or whoever, and your neighbors, the same issues with the neighbors and whatnot. Sure. And sometimes even the townhouse renovations can be more substantial than some of these low-rise, multifamily projects, for sure.
Got it. So what's is there like a core to your practice? What's the bulk of your practice? So
those three areas, I would say, is the
evenly split. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, our real estate practice, my partner handles the transactional side. So he'll deal with acquisitions, sales, refinance, loans, joint venture agreements, all that. And then we have the commercial litigation. The whole thing about me starting my firm was, when I started on my own, it was it was a lifestyle choice. I didn't have to work particularly hard to generate as much as I was making as an employee before. I was a partner, but for all intents and purposes, an employee.
Sure.
And at a certain point, I decided I wanted to scale. But if I was going to scale, I wanted to do it with people that I really felt like were, I don't know, just perfect blends for me, good compliments. And my brother is one of them. So he and I
Oh,
are
nice.
super close, and he's 8.5 years younger than me. But at the time, I kind of was whispering in his ear that, if I ever got on my own, I'm going to go get you. And so I pulled him in, and I pulled his closest friend in from law school, and another friend of mine. So we're a lot of friends who are contemporaries in many ways, and share the and built these practice areas together. So
Oh, that's
that's
great.
what makes it so unique. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you're entrepreneurial. I mean, you wanted to do it your way and start your own thing, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. And you build the culture, right? That you want.
I did, and the culture was extremely important. And then at the same time, it was also, and I don't know if this is necessarily relevant to a podcast with lawyers, but I wanted to pursue certain business opportunities as well. So one of my colleagues who was a developer, he said, he was a lawyer and a developer, and he said, "Look, I want to go out on my own too. Can I, do half my time as a lawyer and half my time pursuing development deals?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it, and then we'll start our own development company." So that's actually taken off too. So we have a development company and a project that's underway, and hopefully it's a pretty sizable senior affordable housing project in Washington Heights. It's going to be finished sometime around October.
Oh, nice.
So very exciting about that. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. There's no conflict as a lawyer. You can do those things.
No, because not if unless there were parties that I represented that would be compromised in another situation. But in that particular circumstance, no,
Oh,
no
good.
conflict. Yeah.
Cool. And there's still a lot of development going on in the city?
Yes, and there's and everybody is all about, or at least the policy noise is all about more affordable housing, the housing crisis. So it's everyone's trying to get that moving. There's a lot of resistance. The zoning is very difficult to maneuver, but with new policy objectives that might turn, and there might be more housing soon. But no, the construction has been pretty gangbusters, even through COVID. There wasn't a slowdown. There was a stop for a week at the height of COVID, where construction was shut down. But even then, if you had any affordable component, or you were considered exempt from the moratorium, you could proceed. And so we were, as a law firm and through our development project, we really didn't get hit by COVID too much.
Yeah, I was watching one of the big real estate guys in the city, Rudin.
Yep.
He was on CNBC the other day, and he was talking about the big shift in Manhattan, because as people move away from an in-office environment, we're going to see a big shift towards residential in the city to try to keep the critical mass in the city, as opposed to being outside the city and coming in. Do you see that happening?
City is humming along right now, and now I don't know if that's a holiday season or just people excited about being out in the air again. But no, I feel the energy for sure, and I could see that happening. I don't know the inside tracks of all that, but I can tell you that I feel it for sure, that there's a demand for it to be here.
Yeah. All around the country, people, less people going into an office. So you would think that would be a natural to shift the development.
Yeah, nobody's building out big commercial office right now. That's just not a thing you want to do. And ironically enough, we had just, right before COVID hit, we had just signed an office lease for 7 years in a much bigger space. And the amount of unknowns in that moment, when you didn't know how it was going to turn out, was pretty intense. We didn't know really anything. but it all seemed to work out, and now the office is slowly starting to fill up. But on a different, it's impacted the climate, or the work and office climate for sure. I mean, there's an expectation of certain remote work. That's not even, and that was completely foreign before that happened.
Completely
it was all,
foreign.
you got to go to work. You got to show up at the office. And if you figured out a loophole, that was, who are you? You're like Superman. If you figured out how to travel around and work. So
how are you guys handling that?
So it's interesting. It's had some challenges. Well, in the very beginning, when we thought that COVID was letting up, and we were like, okay, we're encouraging everybody to come back to the office. And then there was another wave, and then there was another wave. So then we backed off of that again. And now we ask the employees to come in 3 days a week.
Okay, good.
And at their discretion. And we expect them to be available during business hours. Yeah. So that's how we handle that.
Good. Excellent. I mean, I think people want to be with other people anyway, don't you think? They don't want to be sitting in their bedroom working all the time.
You would think, but I think you get into a cycle.
Yeah.
Even my business partner, he's extremely busy. And granted, the commute is a little difficult, but he got into a rhythm of working at home, and it's just the way. And I don't think you realize how much time you're spending at home until you're forced out of it to come back, and then you're like, oh wait, I did miss this. But if you're still doing it, I think it can roll into itself and be something you get used to and you just do. But yeah, for me, when I wanted to come back, because I wanted to be the first to come back and be more active and lead. And then when I did, I enjoyed it. For me, being around people there's so many intangibles that you can't replicate outside. And I think there's only so much you can do through, you have all sorts of technology, but Slack and email, text and phone and all that, but there's nothing better than just sitting down and thinking about, hey, what do we want to do about this? And there's a shorthand to it that I really appreciate.
Right. So tell me, how did you become a lawyer? Like, when did you make that decision, and what was that path like?
So, that was not a calculated decision. I mean, in college, I think, or growing up rather, I'd seen a bunch of movies, probably mostly with Tom Cruise or something in it, or some other character that's playing a lawyer, and it looked pretty cool. But I think in college, I just didn't know what to do. I was a psych major, and I tossed around the idea of going to grad school for psychology, which I think, ironically enough, is 90% of what I do anyway, because my consultations with my client is mostly psychoanalysis and figuring out how to get people to be their best version of themselves. And same with negotiating across the table, understanding who your counterparty is. But anyway, back to why I want to be a lawyer. So I took the LSAT, and I'm like, all right, I'll just apply, because I don't know what I want to do, and I certainly wasn't ready to be out in the workforce. I was just too not ready. And so I went to law school, and I still didn't know. And even after I was practicing for a couple of years, I didn't know where I wanted to, what I wanted to focus on. And in fact, I went back to school, a few years into my practice of law, and I went to NYU. I went to the real estate program to get a master's. And I thought I wanted to, work with developers, or even like kind of hybrid the two together, which is kind of what I'm doing now. But I didn't know, and I thought this might be a way to get in there. And it turns out that was a really great decision for me, because one, it introduced me to one of my major clients now, but two, I got to see how the business side of everything ran, and so to be able to switch from the business to the legal was extremely helpful, and to understand the fundamentals of real estate. And I was working at a firm at the time, and then all of those came together when I graduated NYU and left the law firm to go start for myself. It all kind of came together at that point.
Yeah.
But the choice to go to law school was completely just like, throwing a dart at the board, So yeah.
That's interesting. I meant to ask you about that, the real estate program, because I mean, it wasn't that long ago. There weren't that many schools that had those kind of programs. MIT had a real estate. I mean, because I considered going to that myself. I remember years ago, but there's probably a lot more now that have those real estate programs.
At the time it was just Columbia and NYU. I remember when I went, and NYU was just more convenient, and also it had an introductory program where you could get a certificate.
Yeah.
And so I started with that just to see if I liked it. And from there, I was like, okay, I'll go through the whole program. And that, and it turned out to be great. I mean, it was a little long. I mean, because I wound up having to working full time and taking 2 classes a semester. That was pretty grueling.
Oh, yeah.
So at some point I slowed it down to 1, which wound up taking, must have taken 5 years, I think, something like that to finish. I was like you could only do it in a certain amount of time, and I was like,
sure,
at the end, So
that's funny. Oh man, but I would imagine that's very helpful in your practice.
It is, and it was equally helpful for the network that I created.
Yes,
the people, because in New York real estate, it's half the battle is who you know, maybe even more.
Right.
And so there's not many people who are more than 2 degrees of separation from me in the real estate world.
Yeah. I would think so.
Yeah. And in all avenues. So in construction, it's extremely helpful, because if I need to get to somebody in the field related, whether it's an expediter, an engineer, an architect, a consultant, tax person, this person, that, so I know which direction to navigate to get to those people. So
Right.
it's helpful.
So in your practice, you talk about litigation. I mean, how much litigation do you get involved with?
Well, I used to litigate personally, right?
Yeah.
First, when I worked for 2 prior law firms, and even when I first started on my own, I was litigating, and I did quite a bit. I never got to do a trial.
You didn't. Okay.
I didn't get to do a trial, but I was always arguing. I was arguing motions and doing discovery and depositions, and I think actually the litigation matters, which was the impetus for me to feel comfortable leaving the firm I was at to start on my own, because it was a pretty high profile case at the time, and I was going to be taking it out on my own. But currently we have 5 attorneys working in litigation right now, and I'm just kind of serving in a supervisory or advisory capacity to give some feedback as to what might be the best strategic approach to certain things. But I'm not in the weeds on that.
Okay.
And I feel like if I were in the weeds on that, that would have to be the thing I do. Really just totally devoted to it, because it's very hard to manage and also be an excellent litigator.
Right.
It's very difficult.
What are the issues that you're litigating around? Disputes?
Yeah, disputes. It could be in the context of commercial, like business disputes, right? Partner is, cut out of a deal. It could be in the context of construction. The contractor has created all sorts of defects or was delayed in finishing the project, and we represent the developers in proceeding against the contractor. The design team could have been flawed in their design of the project, and you have to go after the design team and typically the insurance policies that are behind the design team. That's, I would say, yeah, and then traditional real estate disputes as well. We have one matter right now that's fairly high profile. We represent, like I said, in the first instance, someone who was cut out of a major development deal downtown by a very wealthy businessman, and he used it to our allegations are that he used that or he manipulated it so that he could build his townhouse perfectly in a way that wouldn't be interfered with by the neighboring development site. So that's the thrust of our allegations. It's actually headed towards trial, and we're currently up against Boies Schiller. So that's the.
So you're going to be a jury trial.
Yeah.
And what's at stake?
Manhattan. Yeah. It's about, I think it's close to 45 million, something like that.
Big number.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you get ready for that? What's your approach?
Me? I watched the litigation team.
Well, I mean, what's your litigation team? I mean, how are they going? And what side?
Yeah.
But that's not a plaintiff or defense, is it? I mean,
We're the plaintiff.
You're the plaintiff. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a big award you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to win that. So how are you going to win that?
We got to win that. How are we going to win it? Well, we got to prepare for trial, right? We've done all the depositions. We've done the motions for summary judgment. All of our claims that we deem particularly valuable are upheld. So we get to pursue those claims, and none of their counterclaims are going to survive. So it's really just how much can we win at trial, and will the jury believe us?
And how are you going to do it? How are you going to maximize that? Is it just a math exercise? How do you get them to award you what you need, what you want?
Well, we have to prove it out. I mean, there's certain, testimony and documents that are going to confirm what essentially the expected profit was for our client had he not been deprived of that opportunity to pursue the deal. So if we can show that,
okay.
If we can show that through compelling evidence, which I believe we can, we should do pretty well. And we think we have a pretty slam dunk case on a good portion of it as well.
Do you need an expert, a financial expert, to come in there and do that for you?
You need experts to. That's something that that's what we're going to be strategizing between now and the trial. What experts we may be using on trial, but we got to be prepping our witnesses. That's a major thing. Prepping how to cross-examine their witnesses, and we can be sure that Boies Schiller is not going to be unprepared.
Yeah. So those soft issues where you have to sort of get them on your side. I mean, how do you test that or those arguments? Right.
So we know our strengths and we know our weaknesses based on the deposition testimony, right? So all of that's been transcribed. And if they say something conflicting at trial, then they're going to be cross-examined as to their credibility if they said something, different during their deposition. So, we got to stay true to what was in the deposition testimony, or explain away why certain things were answered that way, and then be prepared to address what the responses were from the other side, and what the questions will be to our witnesses that they're going to try to attack our witnesses on. Basically, try to get our witnesses prepared for the worst case scenario on how they can look stupid,
right,
in the witness stand.
Do you ever focus group those things? I mean, see how they perform.
I mean, we're going to. Yeah, we're going to do a mock.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Everything. Yeah. I mean, it's still. We'll see if it has. Look, a case could settle at any time, but we have to prepare as if we're going forward, and that's that. So.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So, I mean, how often do you find yourself in those situations where you have to get in front of a jury? I mean, those are big numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't happen that often. I mean, I think statistically, 97% of cases settle, right? I mean, very few cases go to trial.
Yeah.
And particularly in our world, in the construction world, developers don't want to spend the money on a drawn out litigation. It's to get to an inflection point in the case where there's an opportunity to settle that makes sense, where both parties kind of see the writing on the wall and let's stop the bleeding now and get to a number.
Yeah. But in that case, you guys get paid on contingency, or is it all billable?
Well, our default is billable, but if a case were to come in the door where there was an opportunity to participate in the in the claim and it made
Yeah.
sense, we like the claim, then that's something we would entertain. It's a tiny fraction of what we do, but you know, from a business perspective, it's a diversification for us to be able to take a big swing at something on a contingency, or if we don't necessarily want to do that, you know, keep it on an hourly rate. And some clients don't want to do the contingency because they know they have a slam dunk case. They don't want to, and it's going to settle pretty quickly. So it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, those are, and then some cases, like for example, a case that I'm handling now, I wound up deciding to not charge anything because the story was so compelling to me, and the client was really got screwed, and I wanted to do the best to help him, and he had a lot of personal circumstances going on around him that made it extremely difficult for him to support any kind of litigation or claim.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anyway, I know I'm drilling down that. I was just curious about that. And I'm gonna ask you something that's totally like tangential, but I'm curious to know, because you're in Manhattan and with all the talk about global warming and sea rise, I mean, are you seeing a change in the development to address those pending issues? I mean, you know, like with Sandy, with the flooding that happened through the summer, are people addressing those now with construction?
Not in Manhattan that I know of, right?
Yeah.
I'm not in that. I'm not in the trenches of what the engineering is for new developments that may be next to the water. But I can tell you in Rockaway, they had the whole build back program. Post Sandy. Wow. And all the newer houses were on stilts with no basements. We have a place in Rockaway that is in one of the largest HOA developments in the world that didn't get impacted by Sandy at all, and in large part because there were no basements there. And once they did that, it was okay. And they are doing a significant amount of dredging along the beaches, along the beach line, and that's currently going on. And so it seems to be there's an awareness of it, and certainly things that are being done. I don't know about in Manhattan.
Yeah. Yeah, I was curious about that. I mean, listen, in Miami, I mean, some really innovative construction stuff where, you know, like the utilities are above ground now, right?
Yeah.
And the lobbies are fully, you know, they're built in a way where they can't be damaged by water.
It's fascinating. I mean, that is the talk of the town in Miami. I was just down there a few weeks ago, and even, you know, in my cab ride over, they're like, so, you know, what do you think about, you know, Miami being underwater soon? I'm like, well, a lot of people are thinking about that right now. So
but they don't seem to be thinking about looking at the development. I mean, the development's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's more like, well, you know, I guess we'll just do this, you know, and just keep going forward. It's not real until it actually happens, right?
Right. That is kind of that's the famous expression from Mike Tyson, right? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, good stuff. So listen, just to call it a wrap here, what do you want to leave with the audience about, you know, what do you want them to know about your firm specifically, and best way to connect?
Yeah, I think our firm is a collection of very driven attorneys who bring a wide experience to all the matters that we handle. The thing that we take the most pride in is our responsiveness and aggressiveness towards getting to a solution in a way that may not be, the simple solution. Maybe, let's think about the legal solution rather. It's the practical solution. How do we get to something that will ultimately meet your business objectives? And the best way to reach us is just to check out our website and shoot us an email. Whether it's me or my partner, any of us, and go from there.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, it was good to spend time with you. Alex Tuttle with Tuttle Yick in New York. And this is sponsored by EmotionTrac, which is a legal tech platform that helps litigators prepare for mediation trial. So listen, thanks again. Appreciate the time. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks.